Hi guys, John Florez again with another really good one. I just finished a new book by Ted Templeman, the wonderful producer from Warner Brothers Records that worked not only when I worked, but well beyond that. The book is called Ted Templeman, A Platinum Producer's Life in Music. Wow, what a read. I highly recommend it. Go get it. It's excellent. I learned so much from him. I learned a couple things that I can actually use going forward with a little bit of tinkering that I still do in terms of remastering. But my big takeaway from his book is how blessed I was to not have to work with singer-songwriters and bands. I'm sorry, I believe I'd need an advanced degree in psychiatry to do that. Ted details nearly every song he did on the major platinums that he produced, and the process he went through with each tune, and the dynamics that went on with the entertainers that he worked with. And kudos to him, and kudos to his best friend Lenny Waronker. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they spliced together all kinds of different takes. I don't know how they did as many days, weeks, months, and years on projects that they did. I just am blown away by it. And I look at it and I say, for all the money that Ted and Lenny made, I'm not at all envious that they made that money. And boy, I got to tell you, they earned it. I just didn't and don't have the emotional makeup to do those kind of projects. In fact, Ted's book triggered in me a fantasy that I would like to have done if I could time warp back to the late 60s and early 70s when I was doing most of my work. And what I would do in my fantasy is I would go to each of those label bosses that gave me work as an independent producer and say, let's go off the books. I will give your wife, your child, any way you want me to work this. I'll give them 25% of my production fee and a 1-point royalty. And it's off the books directly to them. In return, what I want you to do is when these artists become available, give me a shot at them, okay? And the artists would include, gasp, Johnny Mathis, Tony Bennett, Percy Faith, Vicky Carr, Steve Lawrence, Jack Jones, Sammy Davis Jr., on and on and on. You see, the difference between what Ted did and what I like to do was, if you're working with any of those artists that I just mentioned, you rehearse them, you go into the studio live orchestra, the artist comes back the next night or two, they do a max of 1, 2, or 3 takes per tune, and they're done and they're out of there. And then you finalize with the mastering process. 3 weeks, rehearsals to mastering, done. No drama, no soap operas, no groupies, no drugs, no alcohol, people that show up on time, sing in tune, and you've worked with the finest studio musicians in the world to back them in the first place, so I'm not making millions off of their product. I am going to get paid well with my production fee, and just for an example, my Johnny Mathis album, that first album royalty check was for 6 figures. Now come on. That's about the same amount I made for my first Rock the Boat royalty check, and that was a #1 record in the country. So, yeah, I'm not going to make millions on top of millions of dollars working with, as Clive called them, over-the-hill artists, but I'll tell you, I'll take a pro singer any day over singer-songwriters and bands. So that's the first thing I learned from reading Ted's book. Another interesting thing that he said, and he said it in one sentence, is that after he became a senior vice president at Warner Brothers, as well as the platinum producer that he was, he had the power to allocate money to radio and DJs. Okay, there it is. He did one sentence, but I've spent episodes on my YouTube site telling you about this. If that isn't in place, you don't get played. And the only way you can have a hit record is if for some reason it starts grassroots and builds from there. But not only was there money reserved for radio and DJs, there were significant funds allocated to tour support. None of my artists ever had any of that. They didn't have the radio, DJ, and program consultants budget, and they certainly didn't have tour support. So how are you supposed to break an act? Well, you got to get lucky, and I guess I got lucky because my hits were grassroots hits. And I don't mean the group Steve Perry produced, the grassroots. I mean they happened from the ground up. And thank you God that they did, because it gave me several years of a lot of fun making records in the music business. I want to give you kind of a humorous aside. I was walking with a Warner Brothers employee to lunch, and Lenny Waronker and Ted Templeman were right in front of us. And I said, "Hey guys, have you seen that new TV ad for the American Motors AMC Gremlin, that new compact car that just came out?" And Lenny and Ted looked back at me as if to say, "What planet is this man from?" Well, Ted had a Ferrari, and Lord knows what Lenny was driving at the time, but Warner Brothers was the country club set, and they all had fancy vehicles, and I'm just the average Joe saying, "Hey, did you see the new AMC Gremlin TV ad?" Gosh, at one point before Rock the Boat, I was driving a $1,000 used car as my vehicle. So we lived in two different worlds. There was the Warner Brothers world, which was the elite of the elite. And kudos, by the way, to Lenny Waronker with Mo Austin's support for building that incredible stable of producers that they had over there. They were absolutely the best. And I just want to thank them all for the quality of the music that they made time after time after time. Good job, guys. So the last thing I learned, which is totally a mind blower from an engineering point of view, is that Ted talks about using Sunset Sound, which was a popular studio in LA, and he used it specifically often just to take live arena rock bands into that facility and recreate the power of what the band sounded like live and in concert. First, I didn't know that was possible, and secondly, I don't know how he did it. He talks about he had to place musicians differently and that room had a really special sound for doing that, but I'm sorry, that's an art form that he created. And I know this for a fact because I signed one live concert band. It has a silly name, Gropus Cactus, but the guys were great players, and they would bring the house down at venues in San Jose and San Francisco. They were a crowd favorite. So when Carol, my ex-wife, and I flew to San Jose and watched them play live, I signed them on the spot. So when they came to LA and we recorded in Hyder's Studio 4, I basically made them sound like I make the studio musicians sound, as crisp and clean as I can possibly get their instruments to sound. And I wondered why that energy from their live performance didn't equate to the same thing on the records. The records are fine and they're crystal clear and crystalline, but no, it's missing what Ted knew how to do. And I certainly didn't. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Gropus Cactus. I just didn't know any better, okay? And had I maybe gone to Lenny Waronker, who was a social business acquaintance at the time, and said, "Lenny, how do you guys do this stuff acoustically?" And he'd probably say, "Talk to Ted," and then I could have tried. But I don't think I could ever have done the job that Ted did. Oh my God, what masterpieces. Okay, so to close this out, I'm going to give you an example of Gropus Cactus. Here's the first cut crystal clean at Hyder Studio 4. Here's excerpt number 1. You can act any way you want. It depends on what you wanna do. But try to smile and watch the big change in you. Okay, now here's the same cut with a fake live audience added, which is the best I could do because I can't do the band sound that Ted was able to get. Okay, it's a dirty trick. The group isn't live, but we're pretending it's live, and at least it helps. Okay, so here you go. You can act any way you want. It depends on what you wanna do. But try Okay, I'm sorry. That's like putting a Band-Aid on a production that you did 40, 50 years ago. But I don't know what else to say. I'm no Ted Templeman. I'm no Lenny Waronker. What I was, believe it or not, I was Jerry Fuller. I was Al DeLore. I was Jack Gold. I was Joe Reisman. I was Ernie Altshuler. I was all the, I would call us the senior citizen style producers as singer-songwriters and rock bands began to take over the charts. Okay? This was kind of fun to share with you. I hope you enjoyed it, and you guys take care. As always, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.